The House will please come to order. I'm going to wait till a few more members get out of the gallery or out of the lobby and get on the floor. We're missing a chief clerk. We have a chief clerk. I think we're getting most everybody organized. All right. We got our appropriators ready to rock and roll. I see most of them. Chairman Zwanitzer, are you hanging around for a privilege?
I am now, Mr. Speaker.
All right,
Could I have a privilege?
please.
And so it's always kind of cool when two of your best friends from high school start dating in high school and they end up getting married and staying in Cheyenne and having a kid, and then actually they had twins. And then it's even more cool when you get to go to the county fair and buy your best friend from high school's kid's turkey. And so if you'd look to the South Gallery, up there is Colton Schick, who apparently is ditching math class right now just to watch the legislature because we're more fascinated.
Hey! Any other privileges of the floor before I start? Representative Stivar? No? All right. We're at that order of business of House Budget Bill on third reading. The reading clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1, sponsored by Appropriations. General Government Appropriations. An act to make appropriations for the fiscal biennium commencing July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2026. Being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
There are amendments. So the first one is third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 1. Representative Nemec.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 1 and ask for your favorable consideration. I did a second amendment reading and that one ended up DRT, so coming back, I lowered this by, lowered it by half. So it'd be appropriation of $5.5 million. $4 million would support those regional response teams, and $1.5 million would support those hazardous devices teams.
Anybody like to speak on the bill? Chief Clerk, please call the roll on third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 1.
Allemand.
Excused.
Allred. Andrew. Angelos. Banks. Bear. Berger. Brown. Burkhart. Byron. Chadwick. Chestick. Clauston. Conrad. Crago. Davis. Eklund. Haroldson. Harshman. Heiner. Henderson. Hornock. Jennings. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson JT. Lawley. Locke. Nyman. Newsom. Nicholas. Nemec. Northrup. Oakley. Obermuller. O'Hearn. Olson. Ottman. Pendergraft. Penn. Provenza. Rodriguez-Williams. Sherwood. Singh. Slagle. Smith. Stiff. Storer. Strock. Stivar. Tarver. Trujillo. Walters? Ward? Washut? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwonitzer Dan? Zwonitzer Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there, Allemand? Excused to no? Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 38 aye, 24 no.
Third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 1 has been adopted. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 2, Zwonitzer Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 1 and ask for your favorable consideration. As you'll remember, back in second reading, we had a couple of amendments that came forward about the border control. And so my attempt here with this particular amendment is to combine what I feel is the best of both bills. And so I'm moving 2 million over to the Harshman Amendment and going with the Harshman Amendment as it was written.
Let's use the name of the amendment number and not, we don't use the representative's name.
My apologies. That is correct. So what this does,
Actually, it's in the amendment, so sorry. Harshman is in the amendment, so you can use the name. My apologies.
and I accept your apology for my apology. So, Mr. Speaker, in all seriousness, what this does, I just believe that the way it is written now provides the maximum financial ability, plus it lets us put the border control to the places that we want it to go, to where your local community wants it to be. So there's several places that it could end up going, and maybe a community gets together and says, hey, you know, we really need to send somebody to some particular area for whatever reason it happens to be, and everybody's supportive of it. So with that, I would ask for your favorable consideration.
Representative Hornott, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. More of a question. So these two amendments both had, during second reading, they both listed the phrase border states. So how now, in this amendment, what does that mean? Because one of them dealt with border states around the state of Wyoming. One of them dealt with border states that are on our south border of America. So just curious how, now what does that mean in this amendment?
Representative Angelos, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think on and against this amendment, I think the first two amendments were really, one was to address materials, one was to address people, and we're providing both of those things. Not saying that it's not, that it can't go, but I know razor wire is something that they need, and Conexes. If you've seen the border wall in the Lone Star State, that's what they're using. So this just splits that up and gives an option for both. And I would much rather send our treasurer at this point and help out than our blood of our people. And we can do that, but this just makes it, gives both options. So on and against.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time before the sponsor? Representative Zwonitzer Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And to answer the question about how the two amendments differed, the first amendment that we're deleting, in my opinion, sent a check down to a particular state to just help fund their activities. The second amendment allows for the state to reimburse those counties, cities, or areas that decide to send unit down to support the problem, and on any border, not just one particular state. It could be any border from any state that says, hey, we need help, please send us help. I ask for an aye vote.
Chief Clerk, please call the roll on third reading amendment number 2.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Repeat? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Clauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Harrelson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermuller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Repeat? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stiff? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwaniter Dan? Zwaniter Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there any changes? Allemand? Aye. To no? Provenza? No. To aye? Further changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 36 aye, 26 no.
Third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 1 has been adopted. We are now on third reading amendment number 83, Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I would move third reading amendment number 3, or third reading amendment number 83 to the budget bill and ask for your favorable consideration. Ladies and gentlemen, what this does is there's now only $1 million that is going to the border wall. And that just brings that $1 million home back so we can appropriate it for something for the state of Wyoming. So
Representative Bear? No. No. Representative Crago.
Maybe just a point of order, clarification, Mr. Speaker. I think we just deleted that amendment on the last amendment, but I'm not positive.
Somebody's there? We'll just take a little break until anybody else like to speak for their first time, first
Mr.
of all?
Chair, Mr. Speaker, it's not applicable, so I withdraw the amendment.
Okay, third reading amendment number 83 has been withdrawn. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 74, Representative Davis.
Mr. Speaker,
Please.
I'd like to move third reading amendment number, what number is this going to be now?
74.
Okay, 74, yes, to House Bill number 1. In this amendment here, it's an appropriation of $850,000 out of the FERNERPA fund, or no, out of the general fund. And this is to fund two full-time positions to help with the county's association for county commissioners on fighting the up-and-coming federal government actions, either by way of the Rock Springs RMP, by the way of the NEPA process, all the different things that are coming down our way. Our county commissioners are first ones in line. Currently, they have one staff attorney. They need 2 more. And I think this is our first line of defense if we're going to be pushing back against the administration. So I'd look for an aye vote on this one.
We probably really shouldn't have, to say administration. I'd rather say federal government, something like that. But anyway. All right. Chairman Zwanitzer for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just making sure I have the most correct copy, but I do believe it says it's 850 out of the federal natural resource policy account that we created, I think my first term here in the legislature, and we've used very well over the years. My actual question, though, at the bottom on lines 14 and 15, and I do support this amendment, it does seem interesting that it's going to, if we pass this, it will go as a request into the 27-28 budget, but then it will stop then. So not a reoccurring appropriation, but kind of an interesting, this budget cycle plus the next. Is there any rationale for that? Do we think this is a time-limited thing the feds are going to change their mind on? Or I guess I can say the feds, right, Mr. Speaker?
Yep.
Okay, are going to change their mind and we don't need this going forward long-term?
Anybody else for their first time? Chairman or Representative Larson Lloyd for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a reminder that the FNRPA account was set up to absolutely intended to help counties when counties couldn't help themselves, and particularly on these federal issues. It's never been intended to be an absolute, this is going to be guaranteed for positions or things of that nature. We've funded it. They've been funding an attorney's position out of that. That's great. But once we set this in the budget, it's in the budget, and they don't want 1, they want 2. And I don't argue that the workload may warrant that. I'm just hesitant to make it permanent because we've always funded it. I think there's also a conversation. We increased the local distribution back to locals this year. Remember, we done some of that as well. And so I think this is a partnership between counties and the state. The state's bellying up to the bar, and I think the counties need to do that as well. And so I'd be real careful on this. And I know I've got some folks back home probably not happy with me saying that, but I think I just will continue to fund and help do that. I just don't want to make it a permanent position.
Representative Hornock for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm curious if, I thought that we do have other funds in other places for this, but maybe that is the fund, and why wouldn't we leave some of this up to the department that can handle lawsuits in our state? Thanks.
Anybody else for their first time? Okay, anybody for their second time before the sponsor? Representative Davis for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And thank you to the good representative over there in the corner. This does come out of the FNRPA account. And I was, this position, they currently have 1 there. They're requesting 2 additional positions with the onslaught of the federal overreach at the state of Wyoming right now. You know, everything is dragging out through the process. I mean, we've had the Rock Springs RMP, which has been just devastating over there. Depending upon the record of decision, what will happen there, but just filling out the comments and evaluating everything for our county commissioners. They're first in line to comment on things, our conservation districts, our local municipalities, all of our industry, all of our agencies in there depend upon the county commissioners for a first line of defense here. I mean, the most important thing about this natural resource attorney position is the partnership that it maintains with the state of Wyoming, including the governor's office, the attorney general, agencies, and the federal delegation. So I just, if they're asking for this, the workload has got to be out there that we can help assist our county commissioners in this effort to fend off the federal government. So I ask for an aye vote on this one.
So I'm going to rule that this amendment is not appropriating new money. And so I'm just going to go a voice vote regardless of what your sheet says. So all those in favor of third reading amendment number 74 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Motion carries. Third reading amendment number 74 has been adopted. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 58, and that would be Representative Knapp.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move third reading amendment 58 to House Bill 1 and ask for your favorable consideration. We did have discussion on this before, and I wanted to reiterate in two different areas. One is statewide elected officials. They have a voice, and they have a voice for the people that elected them. And I believe it's not only the expectation in their area of expertise, but more importantly, satisfying their duties as that elected official to have comment in not only what happens in this state, but in states around us. And then the second point is we made comment about interventions and lawsuits, and actually what was filed was an amicus brief. And it was not made on behalf of the state, it was made on behalf of this elected official in his official capacity of his elected office. So it's not multiple voices speaking on behalf of the state. It's a bona fide elected official speaking officially on his capacity. And it should be noted that other officials elected did comment on a brief outside of their state as well. So I ask for your favorable consideration.
Representative Pendergraft for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to reiterate my position that I believe this amendment is in keeping with the will of the people who voted overwhelmingly on this issue.
Representative Ward for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to emphasize that this amicus brief helped to ensure the integrity of our elections, plain and simple. Thank you.
Chairman Nicholas for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So on and against the amendment, ladies and gentlemen. And the argument that was brought to this body 2 days ago was that why not do this to the other electeds other than the chief executive? Well, that's going to be in front of us. So on and against.
Representative Bear for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First for a second.
Anybody else for their first time? Representative Hornock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. According to Rule 12-4, I ask for the ayes and noes.
Seconds? Chief, you got a couple? All right. Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time before the sponsor? Representative Knapp?
Yes, with your vote, I would just keep in mind, we're all elected officials, all of us, and we all have responsibilities to those constituents, just like this elected official has. So imagine yourself in that position, not being able to weigh in on a decision that truly affects what you were voted in for. Thank you.
Chief Clerk, please call the roll on third reading amendment number 58.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Klauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermuller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stiff? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanitzer Dan? Zwanitzer Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 27 aye, 34 no, 1 conflict.
Third reading amendment number 58 to House Bill 1 has failed. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 3. Chairman Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move amendment number 3 to House Bill 1 and do ask for your favorable consideration. This amendment appropriates $250,000 from Section 2 for reimbursement of expenses for Wyoming's delegation to a convention of the states under the provisions of Article 5 of the United States Constitution. It's valid through the period of July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2026. And Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Speaker, if these funds weren't used, they would obviously revert. So it's an expenditure that we put in place anticipating us joining the Convention of States or an Article 5 convention. And I'll take any questions.
Chief Clerk. What? Oh, you're not ready. Okay. It's 3.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Klauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermuller? Repeat. O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez-Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stiff? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanzer Dan? Zwanzer Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there any changes? O'Hearn, aye. To no. Brown? No. To aye. Further changes? Further changes. Closing vote. Vote closed. 29 aye, 33 no.
Third reading amendment number 3 to House Bill 1 has failed. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 4. Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you, and I move third reading number 4 to House Bill 1. So this is predicated on our discussions 2 days ago. Basically, this just takes that language that it applies to the Secretary of State's office, and it further, and so it applies it to the State Auditor and the State Treasurer's office. That's for your favorable reputation.
Anybody like to speak on this amendment? Representative Stivar, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You made the comment that it was for the treasurer and the auditor. What about the other elected, for the top 5? It's not mentioned in here.
Chairman Newsom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On page 25 of the amendment, the person that takes care of our schools is not listed separately in the way that the auditor and treasurer is. And on page 25 of the amendment, it lists that position that you're referring to.
Chairman Newsom, we don't have 25 pages of amendments. But I heard page, so.
Line 25, I'm sorry, on page 1.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time before the sponsor? Representative Stivar, do you want to take another crack at that? Nope. All right, Chairman Nicholas? Nope. Chief Clerk? Let's see, that may not have any, it has no, so it'll be just a voice vote. Okay, so it's a voice vote on third reading amendment number 4. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Division. And so all those in favor, please rise.
Stand still.
Third reading amendment number 4 has passed, been adopted. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 5, Representative Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd move Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd move third reading amendment number 5 to House Bill 1 and ask for your favorable consideration. And folks, appreciate your support on the carve out of the investment-ready communities for the housing infrastructure. You know, and we all get a lot of emails and stuff, but I've got a lot of good feedback from people that's going to really, this is going to work and going to help. And so then continuing to work on this housing shortage and crisis thing, and it kind of takes me back to the 1980s. Remember when home mortgages were 18%? And you go into our Constitution, Article 15, Section 19, on the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund. You know, in the 70s when that was set up, the idea was that we would be investing back in our state. It wouldn't just all be on Wall Street. In fact, we changed it in 2006 so we could invest in equities. And I mean, if we'd have been investing in equities from the beginning, we'd have more than 10 billion, certainly. But the idea was to not, you know, to also invest in ourselves. And so that's really so that those were called LDIs, legislative designated investments. And the ones we had for housing in the 1980s set up $200 million out of the Permanent Trust Fund when mortgages were 18% to provide mortgages to Wyomingites at 10%. So that was the idea then. And this is kind of in that same vein. And so this does not command the state treasurer to do this. This allows him to do it. And basically over the next 2 years to roll out in $15 million a year if the need is there for first-time home buyers. Mortgages in our state, 30-year mortgages that would be controlled by the Wyoming Community Development Authority, which is an instrumentality of the state. And the Article 15, Section 19 is very clear about that. It has to be under the control of the state. And and the WCDA already does this, but basically we'd lower today's mortgages from 7% to 3.5%. And what does that mean for an average Wyoming young family? Maybe a $300,000 home. And I'll just 3.5% for 30 years, the payment is $1,347. The market rate now would be $1,995. So almost $1,995, $2,000. And so we go from $1,350 to $2,000. But then I think, as we all know, the compounding power of interest, right? Albert Einstein, the most powerful force in the universe, compound interest. But for this young Wyoming couple.
I'm not sure we're even supposed to mention that other Albert.
So, yeah, appreciate the interruption, Mr. Speaker. The other cost of the interest then is at the end of the term. So at 30 years at 3.5, that young Wyoming couple would pay $184,000 in interest charges. Today's rate, that'd be $418,000. And so we've done this before in our state's history. It's worked well. Talking about 30 million out of over 10 billion, and this is out of the reserve account. Is there going to be some opportunity costs? Yeah, there probably is. Could you make more than 3% out in the market? Yeah, you probably could. But it's about investing back in ourselves, and that's an important investment as well. So I'd stand for any questions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Berger for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to the good representative from the #1 county in the state. Thank you for bringing this. My question is, what first-time home buyer class? Is it a small class? Is it, you know, what would that, how would you qualify that as a first-time home buyer? Is it any, or that's my question.
Representative Yin for your first time.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Just for ensuring that we are on the right amendment, are we on third reading amendment number 5, corrected copy? I just want to make sure that that is in order.
Representative Yin, that's what I'm looking at. Yeah, Chairman Harshman, why don't you move the corrected copy?
You know, Mr. Speaker, 100%. I appreciate that. And it is the corrected. And so, yeah, one had a 10-year, and anyway, Thank you.
Yeah, stop there. Representative Hornock for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to urge the body not to vote for this. We are setting an interest rate here that will last. We are legislatively setting an interest rate on home buying. That's pretty odd, considering, there's a whole free market aspect. Maybe interest rates go back down. And so this is at 3.5%, interest rates are at 2%. So we're setting an interest rate in our state statute. Why not just pass a law that says interest rates in Wyoming aren't allowed to be more than 3.5% or something like that? This is a really odd way to do something, in my opinion. And then we're also competing with the free market, because the free market kind of establishes this interest rates, a long-term loan. A bank figures out what interest rate they want to set their long-term loans at. And then also, we are going to lose money off of our corpus for our investment in the state of Wyoming, which funds 30% of our state. So we're putting money into a place where our rate of return on that money is going to be lower than it probably would be otherwise. I just urge some real caution when voting for this kind of amendment. I urge you to vote no.
Representative Heiner for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a question for the bringer. It relates to the previous speaker. The Mineral Trust Fund Reserve Account, could you tell us what the ROR, the rate of return is on that trust fund right now, the reserve account, because this will give us 3.5% rate of return. And also, what do you anticipate being the administration cost for this this program? Thank you.
Chairman Zwanitzer for your first time.
Thanks. And first, I'd just say it's always fun when you ask for the ROI, because some people will give it to you in 1 year, 5 year, 10 years. So if they would specify that, if they can, quickly on the fly. Actually, I think this is a brilliant way and to do it, and I like this amendment. We do have interest rates in our statutes. We had the farm and loan rate forever. We looked at that last biennium. This is actually better because the budget only lasts for 2 years. So if something does skyrocket or fall in the interest market, we'll be back here next year. Could amend that in the supplemental budget. But then again, we'd have to look at it for the next biennium, or this body would, and could change that interest rate should this program take off and really be a boon. So I think this is the right way to do it, instead of trying to open a statute every year, putting it in the budget, having some money, trying to get some first-time home buyers. If the interest rate is off next year, we can amend the supplemental, but I think this is a really brilliant way to do it.
Representative Davis for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I too question if that's the best bang for the buck. If the last time around here, we're discussing raising up from 5X to 7X, et cetera, trying to get more investment, more returns on our dollars. And the other thing I caution is, does this mean that we as a body are willing to go against private industry, our banking? Oh, can I say that? The industry that lends money to these people, are we going in competition with them? I mean, it's a nice idea, but I hate to see us putting them at a disadvantage. So vote no. I'm not in favor.
Representative O'Hearn for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're in an aging society, and this might be a real great way to encourage young home buyers back into the state of Wyoming. It's been done before. Aye.
Anybody else for their first time? Representative Tarver for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm a no on this. This is just picking winners and losers. And if we really want to give back to the people, let's just cut some taxes.
Representative Crago for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we should think about this as an investment in people, not maybe dollars. We need to get some young people coming back to our state, and then this would help accomplish that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Andrew for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would urge a no vote. I think As a government, we have the ability to make more money available, but we do not have the ability to make more housing available, which will increase demand on a very stagnant supply and potentially push housing prices up even more. Thank you.
Representative Pendergraft for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and against the amendment, to me, it's just a basic economics of the idea of supply and demand. By taking some of the demand away from the banks, we put upward pressure on the interest rates, and we end up perpetuating the problem that we're trying to fix. So against.
Chairman Eklund for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So all of us are aware of the economy that we're in and the difficulty of young families going anywhere right now to buy a home. They can't scrape up the down payment, and the interest is high, the houses are high, and there aren't enough houses around. I think it's been mentioned, it's in the budget bill. If this were really a mistake, we look at it next year and correct the thing. Far as the banks go, these young people are out of that anyway. They can't buy a house. This might be a good way for Wyoming to help young people not only stay here, but complete American dream. The American dream probably most of us had. We were able to buy real estate when certainly was easy when I was there. It wasn't easy to pay for, but we could get into it and get it paid for. There's no way some of these young folks, even with two young couples with two pretty good jobs, probably can't scrape up enough to buy a house.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time before the bringer? Representative Hornock for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, something occurred to me while we were debating, and just wanted to bring this up. We would be putting this mortgage interest rate in state statute, but it doesn't say that it's for the life of the mortgage. So at any point in time, this body could come back, and depending on the majority of the body, we could raise this interest rate then to 10, 15, 20, 30% for these first-time home buyers. I would just caution that. I'm not saying that we would do that, but this says that the treasurer will seek the greatest return of their investment possible. The greatest return would be raise this interest rate 10, 15 years down the road, and these guys are already locked into the mortgage. Thanks. Vote no, please.
Representative Heiner for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've seen a similar program in quite a few states in the past that trying to help first-time home buyers. But those programs have not put in an interest rate that stays at that level. Normally what I've seen is they drop the interest rate down from prime 2 or 3 points, and then as the prime rate adjusts, then that interest rate adjusts as well. Inherent with a mortgage program, there's going to be some losses. Our investments may not be as secure in this kind of a program, but if we don't nail ourselves at 3.5%, maybe it's an opportunity to create an investment vehicle for the state and help first-time home buyers. I know some states do this specifically for teachers, to help teachers put some roots down and stay in the jobs in their state. So it's a good vehicle to do that. I'm just a little uncomfortable with nailing it at 3.5% and it has to stay at that rate. Our investments also vary, but historically, I think, we need to have something that will make up for any losses we incur, and maybe letting that interest rate fluctuate with the prime interest rate might be a better idea. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman Zwanitzer for your second time.
And thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do completely agree with the last speaker. The 3.5 is, was a choice, and probably not the choice I would have put, or if I'd seen this amendment earlier, the prime rate might have been better. But I do want to make sure you're all aware this is still WCDA, right? So we're not competing in the private market against lenders necessarily. You have to meet certain income restrictions, You have to have certain assets. It depends what county you're in. So the people who go through the WCDA, they already have, I guess we'll call them benefits as first-time home buyers, that they can get rates cheaper than going through their local financial institution. And so this isn't necessarily a competitive with the private market because people are already going to be using the WCDA. If it's only in place for a year, and again, the budget doesn't go into effect until July 1st, we could come back and fix the rate next year in February, make it effective immediately. And so that might be a 6-month window for a boon for young families as they're graduating, trying to figure out where to go, saying, Wyoming's offering me a better deal to put roots down here. I mean, I've given you the demographic speech on the floor 3 times now. It's not looking good in 20 years. We're not getting any young people. They're not staying here. If you want to talk about return on investment, the Hathaway is likely getting to be the worst return on investment we've made because we educate all of our kids and they leave. And we're lucky if they come back someday. This could keep them here right away or help people who have gone move back immediately to buy a first-time home in Wyoming with the current competitive market among all states. So again, I think this is a really great program. We can fix the interest rate next year in February if we need to. But for a 6-month window, I think it's a pretty enticing offer. See how many people take us up on it. See if we can keep some families in the state.
Anybody else for their second time before the sponsor? Representative Berger for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And just to add to what the good chairman of Labor just said, don't forget, it's not just the Hathaway kids that we're trying to keep in this state, but it's those that we're helping out to gain professional licenses like CDLs or CNAs. You know, those kids are getting those and we're paying for those, and then they stay and work, and then they head to somewhere else, other border, and go make more money. But we let them have that, paid for that professional license. I think this probably could be a good opportunity to entice them to stay here and, you know, build their roots.
Anybody else for their second time before the sponsor? Chairman Harshman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Appreciate all the discussion and questions. Let me just first talk about how this is going to work. So the state will then actually purchase a bond, probably 3%, and then the private corporations issue mortgages just like they do now. I talked to the president of the state's largest bank last week about this. They're doing this now with the WCDA, then will administer that, purchase that, and then administer it. These are not adjustable rate mortgages. These are fixed rate mortgages. Okay, so this is not competing with the private. The state's not going to administer. We're not, the legislature or the treasurer's office, not administering any mortgages. These are going to be given out by the state's largest banks. They're going to purchase these bonds just like they go on the national market and purchase these 6% bonds and give our kids 7% interest rates. They're going to purchase a lower cost bond and give a lower interest rate. So it's all private banks and then administered by the WCDA. Fixed rate mortgages, free market. Okay, doesn't matter if the interest rates go up or down. That's what all of us have done as we've bought houses, right? Most of us, I think, have bought fixed rate. We've tried to do fixed rate unless we were back in the 80s. And those of us who are back here in the 80s, we remember it. I remember a friend of mine bought his first house, 18.9% interest rate in Casper. Man, he didn't hang on to that house for long, right? A long time ago. And so it's not a private thing, or it's not a competing with the privates. They're already doing this. They're going to purchase a bond. Really where the issue is the opportunity cost. And I think the good representative from down in Kimmer asked, what is the long term? And the longest I got here, and I reached out to our treasurer's office down below too on this. The longest term I got is 3.7% over 20 years. And so that's it. And then I think it was stated by the representative from Cheyenne that this is coming out of the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund corpus. And if you'll read on it on line 8, it is coming from the reserve account, which is invested differently and not as high a rate. We're trying to grow it so we can go for a total rate of return. But the real downside, if you don't want to vote for this, 30 million out of 10+ billion fund, I don't know what that percentage is, 0.003% invested in our own people. And we might lose, not investing in Wall Street, I don't know, $1 million, $2 million over 30 years. I don't know. So I appreciate the debate, and like all these ideas, we get them from other people who are experts out there and bring them to us, and we try to bring them to the floor to enact policy. So I'd hope you'd vote for this, move it forward, and get it into the appropriations discussion. And last thing, Mr. Speaker, this does not make the treasurer do this. It doesn't say shall. He's authorized to. And if he thinks it's a bad investment, doesn't want to do it, he doesn't have to do it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members.
Okay, all those in favor of third reading amendment number five signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Third reading amendment number 5 has been adopted. Division being called. All those in favor, please rise. I got 33. That more could have stood up. All right. 36, the amendment is adopted. And that was a good debate and all, right? But we went several times, twice. If we want to get out of here before midnight. All right. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 75. Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move third reading amendment number 75. This goes back to the bill the amendment that we just passed. You'll notice that the funds that 15 million was coming out of the Permanent Mental Trust Fund's reserve accounts. Well, I would suggest, ladies and gentlemen, that that's probably not the right fund to use to go for less than optimal returns. So what this does is it takes the funds out of the LSRA. You might recall that the LSRA, the first 500 million in the LSRA is in cash for the most part. And then the second part, so it's kind of divided into 3 different sets of investments. So by using the SLRA, we can actually use funds that are making about the same % return as part of these funds, as opposed to actually losing on investments, as was discussed earlier. So I ask for your favorable consideration.
Okay, all those in favor of third reading amendment number 75 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Motion carries. Third reading amendment number 75 has been adopted. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 59. Representative Slagle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment 59 to House Bill 1. And what this bill does, last session, we voted to keep the Capitol open on weekends or on Saturdays. And this would delete the funding for that. I looked that up, and we ended up with, over that period of time, just under, right at 2,215 people visited the Capitol. That's about $158 a person that visited the Capitol over that period of time. And I'm not sure it's actually a wise use of our money to have the Capitol open that time. Thank you.
Representative Sherwood for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do appreciate the number crunching, but to clarify, it's up to this amount. We ran a pilot last summer. The agency didn't use all of the funds, but now we're going in and clarifying that the People's House should be open to our constituents and to visitors who come here to look at this fantastic building and to learn the history of the Quality State. So we're asking that the next version of this pilot is for special events and for Saturdays, and to provide the staff some flexibilities for holidays. So I would encourage those who believe that this building should always be open and accessible to the public to vote no on this.
Chairman Zwanitzer.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. So just a couple of clarifications for the body to know about. First of that is, when we say how many people visited, that's the people who signed their name down to the guest book by the docent, right? It doesn't necessarily include families or spouses. But it also, what this appropriation generally goes for is security, because when you have an open Capitol building, the security we contract on the weekends, they do a lot more, because I've had a couple of interactions over the last year. Anybody on the front of the Capitol who wants to take photos, people jumping over the guardrails, like my kid did to get some photos with the state seal, immediately got the security personnel out there en masse, the two of them. And so just know that most of that expense is for security, and instead of it just people visiting inside the building, they really do keep watch, and it has helped our highway patrol defray some costs by being able to have contracted security here on the weekends that would otherwise they'd be doing from a different location supervising the Capitol grounds. But it has been really nice on the weekends to have a security personnel in the building should anything take place out front to be able to handle that quickly and judiciously. We have a lot of people out in front of our building taking Instagram or taking photos on social media, doing interesting things in front of our Capitol building, if you haven't noticed, in the streets, et cetera. So a lot of that money really is for the security personnel to keep the building protected and safe on the weekends as well.
Representative Penn for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So this is the People's House. This amendment I'm in favor of. We have to also be cognizant of the people's money, right? We're tasked with a few things here. This amendment doesn't stop people from taking selfies out in front of the Capitol. When I did a little research on this topic, it was found that, so last year, we did Saturdays. Initially, we passed Sundays and Saturdays and ended up with just Saturdays. So 15 days we were open. Additionally, we spent $17,000. And so and I understand it's up to $350,000, but the work that was required to keep it open on Saturdays was able to be absorbed by the agencies that staffed those days. And again, it was $17,000. So on and for the amendment.
Representative Stiff for your first time.
Mr. Speaker, on and against the amendment, this is the People's House, and people of our state should be able to visit it on weekends. Working people who have jobs Monday through Friday who can't get here or who wouldn't be able to get here. Sports teams traveling with their school, visiting on weekends to come here for a tournament, whether it's football or basketball or some other sport. They ought to be able to come by and see our great Capitol. And because of the way the appropriation works, if the money's not all used, then it reverts back to the general fund. On and against.
Chairman Rodriguez Williams, we'll go with you first.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I've heard a little bit about the People's House, but the fact is that on the weekends, these offices aren't open. I've heard the word visitor, guests, tourists being used. It seems that we're overtaxing when it comes to lodging in our state. So I'm just curious why we aren't using that lodging tax to pay for visitors on the weekend here.
Representative Larson Lloyd for your first time.
I received a text from a family I'm pretty close to. They're like my own kids, grandkids. They're pretty dang excited because there's a swimming state swimming thing this week in Laramie for the junior high age kids. They're coming down from the center part of the state. Dad and mom both work. Kids are in schools Monday through Friday, except for this week when they get to come down. They want to come and see the Capitol. They don't want to stand out in front and take a dang selfie. They want to come into the Capitol and look around, and they don't have that opportunity to do that during the middle of the week, even in the summer. On the weekends, they take a trip, go to Yellowstone, go to Devil's Tower, go to Cheyenne, and be able to see the Capitol. Why would we not want people to come in and roam around and see what we get to see every day? We're not the chosen few. Let the rest of the state see it. Vote against this amendment, please.
Representative Chairman Newsom for your first time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we need to look at the bigger picture of tourism. I believe that this building is the most visited site in Cheyenne. So when somebody stops here, it's not a 5-minute, oh, good, we're here, let's take that selfie outside. It takes them maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half to fully appreciate what we have here. And then they go have lunch. And then after they had lunch, they might spend the night. And then after they spend the night, they might go shopping. And so as we look at the larger picture of economic impact of tourism on this community, I think that's where the big win is. The big win is that extra burger or that extra motel room night. Thank you.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody that for their second time before the sponsor? Representative Slagle for your second time.
Thank you for the good debate on this amendment. I would just go ahead and still urge an aye vote. And I think at some point in time, we might want to look at where the funds are coming from for it. Thank you.
Chief Clerk, please call the roll on third reading amendment number 59 to House Bill 1.
Allemand. Allred. Andrew. Angelos. Banks. Bear. Berger. Brown. Burkhart. Byron. Chadwick. Chestick. Klauston. Conrad. Crago. Davis. Eklund. Haroldson. Harshman.
Excuse.
Heiner. Henderson. Henderson. Hornock. Jennings. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson JT. Lawley. Locke. Nyman. Newsom. Nicholas. Nemec. Northrup. Oakley. Obermuller. O'Hearn. Olson. Ottman. Pendergraft. Penn. Provenza. Rodriguez-Williams. Sherwood. Singh. Slagle. Smith. Stith. Storer. Strock. Stivar. Tarver. Trujillo. Repeat. Walters. Ward. Washut. Western. Winter. Wiley. Yin. Zwanitzer Dan. Zwanitzer Dave. Speaker Summers. Harshman. Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 21 aye, 40 no, 1 excused.
Third reading amendment number 59 to House Bill 1 has failed. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 77. Representative Western, could you come to the chair too, please? And so Representative Haroldson?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I move third reading amendment number 77 to House Bill number 1 and ask for your favorable consideration. This goes back to the O'Hearn amendment that we saw on second reading. And this was the one that would talk about the land swap in Platte County on the range land for I guess, I don't know if I can say, anyways, the military range land. And after actually having a couple people in my community comment on this one, saying we didn't even know it was happening, I go back to the conversation of why is this not something we have in a bill and a conversation? We've talked about grazing, we've talked about all sorts of different things. Why not something of this nature? There are people in our community who are interested in having a conversation of what this looks like and why this is going down the way it's going down. So just wanted to have a little bit further conversation about this and see where we go from there.
Anyone else for their first time? Representative O'Hearn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this land, according to the federal government, under current federal law, the Wyoming Military Department must control all its land and military training, fire munitions from or over for safety reasons, and the Wyoming Military Department must have a minimum 25 years ownership of any interest in that land. All the land that this swap is at is currently in Wyoming Military Department property. So it's not going to move outside Camp Guernsey property. It's just moving it from the northern training area where all maneuver and fires are happening to the southern portion of the south training area where the grazing land would all be contiguous for the OSLI. And then all the maneuver land up north would open it up for bigger training units. So it's not moving outside the boundaries, because that's one of the things I asked. I go, what about the easements or any concerns from additional property owners? It's never moving outside those property lines. So the left, right, and southern border are not changing at all. Those people in those areas have the Wyoming Military Department as a neighbor now, and we're not encroaching on any new land at all. I'll stand for questions.
Representative Stivar for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and against this amendment, the Wyoming Military Department needs this to maneuver. I've been out there and played at one time, and it is hard to maneuver around these sections. This is a bad amendment. Please vote no.
Representative Locke for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just wanted to, maybe if you can do some clarification of the numbers. My biggest issue was just understanding the numbers where we're paying a certain number per year right now in rate, and then this number then was appeared to be escalated to some new number. I was just curious why the difference, why that was so important, why what appears to be a payoff up front for that somehow, so it's front loaded, but yet it's also escalated. And so that just seemed odd to me. So thank you. If a better explanation would be helpful for me.
Chairman Brown for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Majority Whip. So ladies and gentlemen, I would urge a no vote on this amendment as well, and I do appreciate just having more discussion about it. Because frankly, the first time I heard about this, even as a chairman, was during the last reading. So I did get some information. I am going to work on trying to send that out to you, but it was really actually quite eye-opening once I had a map that showed exactly what this land swap is doing. And I think that map was sent to everybody, but I don't know for sure. So if it was not, I'm going to look through my email. I've been trying to muddle through here and try to find it. To the technical question that was just asked from the last representative, I know that the former lieutenant colonel here has got that information for you and can explain that. But I will tell you, when you look at the map, you'll completely understand what the reasoning behind this is. What you've got is in that northern area, if you've ever been up to the Guernsey area, the northern area is all live fire, and they fire their HIMARS, and they do a lot of live fire training exercises. There's these pockets of land that are owned not by the military department. Well, that's exactly what the problem is you've got these little pockets, and we battle the same thing here in this city with county pockets inside the city, and then you have to call out a county fire truck to come fight that because the city doesn't respond to county fires, right? Same exact principle happens up there, that you've got these little pockets of non-military owned space that they're trying to swap down low on the southern side for pockets, and it makes it more appropriate on both sides of the argument, to be honest with you. So I do promise that if I can find that, I'll email it to the entire body so you guys understand what you're voting on here. But I would say that based off of the information provided already once, and then me actually seeing it, I can attest that I do think this is a good idea personally. And so I would urge a no vote on this, and I will try to get that out to everybody before we finish up.
Representative Pendergraft for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I'm on and against this amendment. Having seen the map that was just spoken of, having flown over this area, and actually having done maneuvers at this particular facility, I think what we have here is an opportunity to make that particular property much more useful and much more effective as a training area than it now is. And I think it's a good swap.
Representative Slagle for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One question. I think, looking at this map, I interpreted what I'm hearing on the floor and what I saw on the map, I'm not sure totally match up. So I would be an aye vote on this amendment, just for, I think this is something that should be discussed to where people see it and understand it more thoroughly before we vote on it. Thank you.
Any other member for their first time? Seeing none, back to sponsor, Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just as a clarification point, I'm not disagreeing that this isn't a good idea. I think it's a good idea. Actually, it's an intelligent idea. I've looked at the map. I don't disagree at all. The only thing I'm asking is simply this. In a situation like this, why are we not running a bill that can be vetted and people can be informed? And I just feel like it's a situation, if we've had enough time to build maps and to have the discussion and to talk to the landowners and do all of the work, and then the first time anyone hears about it is 2 days ago. That's all I was going at on this, is the process more. Do I agree that we need to do the land swap? Sure. Is it intelligent? Absolutely. I've toured all this stuff as well. I don't see it as an issue. It's just a situation. Is this how we want to do our budget bill, and is this the best place to put these items? That's my disagreement. So with that, I would just, again, I brought this up more for just the conversation point of the policy that we're choosing when it comes to how we pass things through this body. Should we take and do a line item on our budget to try to do what a bill is intended to do? Or should we actually run a bill and run it through the process? So that's, and with that, I take and would ask that we just, in the future, this is how we do things, is run them through that type of a situation. And with that, I'm going to withdraw my amendment.
Seeing no objection, the amendment is withdrawn. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 6. Representative Byron.
Thank you, Majority Whip. I move third reading amendment number 6 to House Bill number 1. Body, this is an appropriation of $100,000 for a third-party contractor to our Office of the AG, Section 015, a third-party contractor to investigate mailers that fail to comply with Wyoming statutory requirements regarding campaign advertising. Where I'm getting at with this is there have recently been and historically been in the last few years mailers that have gone out anonymously, and there doesn't seem to be a way to source them except maybe from neighboring states. So this is an attempt to ask the AG's office to hire a third, not adding a position in government, but ask the AG's office to investigate mailers that fail to comply with Wyoming statutory requirements. Ask for your favorable consideration.
Anybody for their first time? Representative Heiner for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've been looking at Title IX, the duties of the various elected, and looking at the duties of this office, our head attorney, and it doesn't look like it fits in there for what that person's duties are. I think if we want an investigation like this, it should go to that office where elections are handled. So maybe we've got this in the wrong office in this amendment.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time before the bringer? Representative Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Appreciate that question from my neighbor to the south. I will say that the point of the 100,000 going to this exact location is it's not their duty to do the investigation, it's to hire a third party. So just a clarification, ask for your aye vote.
Okay, Chief Clerk, please call the roll on third reading amendment number 6.
Allemande? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Clauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman?
Excused.
Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas?
Excused. Where's he at? There he is.
Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermuller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanitzer Dan? Zwanitzer Dave? Speaker Summers? Harshman? Excused to aye. Are there any changes? Nicholas, no. To aye. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 36 aye, 26 no.
Third reading amendment number 6 to House Bill 1 has been adopted. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 7. Representative Heiner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move third reading amendment number 7 to House Bill number 1 and ask for your favorable consideration. Members, I've done a little research of my own on this facility, the High Plains Research Station in Arboretum, and looked at the master plan for a 4-phase development. It looks very nice after the 4 phases. They estimated, multi-millions, $8.8 million to get to that point back 20 years ago. Take about, who knows what it'll take in today's dollars, but we don't know what we don't know. So rather than invest and begin operation on this thing and start moving towards that, I'd like to see the total package. What kind of obligations and liabilities will we get into? So what I've asked for in this amendment is to reduce that down to a study. Let's do a study so this body can see what the whole package is going to look like. Because I think it would be a nice walking park, city park here in Cheyenne. But we need to study this a little bit and let this body know what we're voting on before we commit $5 million. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Anybody else for their first time? Not. Chief Clerk, please call the roll on third reading amendment number 7.
Allemande? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Plouston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Warnock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermuller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stiff? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Western? Winter? Walters? Oh, pardon me. Wiley? Yin? Zwanzer Dan? Zwanzer Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 27 aye, 35 no.
Third reading amendment number 7 to House Bill 1 has failed. Representative Trujillo, do you have a privilege?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Privilege of the floor.
Please.
For 26 years, I've been a single parent, raising 3 kids in Laramie County and throughout the states as a former military wife. As the days get harder raising kids in today's society, single parents often go and look for organizations to help. I was fortunate enough to find a group to help, and that is my Moms for Liberty out of Laramie County. Moms for Liberty welcomes all that have the desire to stand up for parental rights at all levels of government. Moms for Liberty is a grassroots organization dedicated to fighting for the survival of America by unifying, educating, and empowering parents to defend their parental rights at all levels of government. Help me welcome the Laramie County Moms for Liberty on the west side of the house.
Welcome to the House. We are now on third reading amendment number 8. Representative Hornock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move third reading amendment number 8 to House Bill 1 and ask for your favorable consideration. So I worked on the language between in the last day or so to open up the door for our state construction department to do what they want to for owner's rep services, whether or not that's hire an individual person or hire an agency. So I want them to take a look at the project, look at the complexity of the project, and allow them either situation to go ahead and hire an owner's rep firm or hire an individual person. I can't stress enough the importance of a third-party independent vendor or entity in order to oversee some of our construction projects. It's highly important, especially when we're spending tens, even over $100 million on some of our construction projects. So I ask for your favorable consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Representative Larson Lloyd.
I agree, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I agree on the importance of owner's reps, and so does the Department of Construction. They can and do that now. They don't need this footnote or this language to require them to do it. They've been doing it now for decades, as long as I've been in the legislature. They've been we used owner reps when we redone the Capitol. But what we have found, and what we did for the Department of Construction, is there's some of those times when they can use an AWEC position and get the same quality, because it's using a professional that might be in that area, that is at considerable savings and more flexibility to the Department of Construction. So allowing them to, and this doesn't change that. This is only saying that they have to put out, I think it changes by 1 or 2, but everything that this amendment does, they can already do. Okay, I don't think we need to add any more language into the bill, and would encourage you to defeat the amendment.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time before the Chairman Nicholas for your first time?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. On and against the amendment, but in favor of the concept. So for the Casper office building, we had an independent firm for the Wyoming Life Resource Center, for the state hospital. And in point of fact, as we have been here over time, we have increased the staffing for those folks at, this is one of the hardest working agencies we've got, because the typical contract person over in that office has anywhere between 15 to 50 different projects going on around the state. And so because they are spread so thin, and because we just do lots of major maintenance, we do lots of component parts on all things of the above on all state buildings. And it's remarkable how much work they do and how much they get done, and they perform a wonderful service for us. But on against this particular amendment.
Anybody else for their first time, second time? Representative Hornock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If they already do this, there's no reason to defeat this amendment. Thank you.
All right. All those in favor of third reading amendment number 8 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Third reading amendment number 8 has failed. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 9. Chairman Northrup.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I respectfully withdraw amendment number 9.
Third reading amendment number 9 has been withdrawn. The next one for our consideration is third reading amendment number 81. 81. And that is Representative Conrad.
All right, Mr. Speaker, I move third reading amendment number 81 to House Bill 0001. Ladies and gentlemen, you should have received an email from me earlier today as it related to this amendment. Specifically, this amendment, as you read through, really surrounds 5 areas. As an old state, let me say it differently, in the old mental hospital in southwest Wyoming that has been vacated, the city of Evanston is interested in purchasing of that land as well as buildings. Within that demonstration, they have asked that the following buildings are not destroyed: building number 8, 9, 15, and also 16, as well as not filling in any underground tunnels nor demolishing the boiler house. Specifically, the effort here is to ensure that the city of Evanston has an opportunity for economic development to specifically repurpose, rehabilitate, and restore these respective buildings that are noted, while the demolition of the remaining buildings that are already denoted in the $3.4 million spending is still there. This would preserve, again, those 4 buildings, and more importantly, allow the city of Evanston to pursue the purchasing of all the buildings, with the exception of the 6 that are destroyed. The city, as I may share real quickly, would work with the Wyoming Business Council, respective chambers of commerce, local and regional stakeholders, and use its resources to complete a due diligence process on that. Those buildings are historic. They are currently listed on the Wyoming Historical Sites And I think the preservation and opportunity for economic development, private industry, private investment to satisfy and more importantly promote this great city of Evanston and Uintah County would be greatly appreciated, and ask for your favorable consideration in this amendment.
Representative Larson Lloyd for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the House. I apologize, because I may take a little bit of time because there's some history on the state hospital and the buildings involved that I think that will impact this decision and further decisions. As the good chairman, or the good representative from the land of Jim Bridger talked about buildings and whatnot, we sent out a map that you can see, and you can see the buildings that he's referencing in that he would like to, particularly if you'll look there's a little square that says Tunnel K, and then right there's a blue circle that identifies 4 buildings. And then there's down there close to I-80, there's a couple of other buildings. All of the blue circles on this map represent the first phase of demolition that the Department of Health and the State Construction Department have been in the process of planning. So you'll sense the last 2 years we've been planning to get this done. They went in. Demolition is it's expensive now when you consider the abatement, and just the cost to tear down is almost as much as it is to build up anymore. It's very expensive. And then a facility this size. So historically, going back, so when we built the new state hospital, one of the things that we were concerned about as a legislature is not to do like we did in Rollins, where we left the North Prison sitting there and being an eyesore. So we had always planned on doing a demolition. And as we got started in the process, there was a group from Evanston that approached us and says, do you need to really start this now? And so I'm going to guess, and I could be wrong on the year because time flies, but I'm going to say that was in the summer of 2015, or in 2015. They approached us, me and the good chairman, because we were on that task force. We were meeting with the people to design. He says, do you have to do this now? What if we want to use this facility? We says, fine, let's wait a couple of years. Let's do this after we get this built. Next day we had, at that time, the mayor of the town come to us and says, don't you dare give those to us. He didn't use those exact words, but he left it very plain that they didn't want it because they've got a wonderful facility that they've renovated called the Roundhouse, but it's a burden on operation and upkeep. But he says, we don't have the money to take on a campus of this size. That's fine, but we had a couple of years to work on design that. But in the meantime, we need to have a plan. What are we going to do? So there's 2 things in motion here. One is to develop a plan and a process, an organized process to make sure that those buildings get demolished as need be. And then this conversation, can we reutilize these buildings and how would that look? So we as a legislature authorized through the Business Council $250,000, I want to say, dollars, and we've done a study referred to, and you'll see it in here, the Anderson-Meyer study. That study come back and it encapsulated this campus and all of the state property that is associated with the State Hospital, and they come back with some recommendations and suggested that the cost to revitalize this up to for an economic opportunity, and the suggestion there is it would really be best if the state invested in doing that, and which the Department of Health and we as legislature said, no, we're building a new hospital, not revitalizing that. But there's still a chance there if the city or somebody wanted to do that. Never come up with a plan. In the last year, I'll even say 2 years, there's been additional interest can we save, can we do, how can this be done? There's been a private entity that came in and has come in and suggested that it could be revitalized for economic development. And so, okay, how do we do that? Well, you can't just give a private entity that property. It would have to be sold at auction for the highest bidder, something we hear about on another parcel of land up in Teton County. We've done similar things. So then perhaps we could give it to the city. Could the city take it? And then act as a pass-through for a private entity to get. We've met with me and my colleague from the Bridger Valley, and we met and tried to get some idea of what that looked like. And my understanding from that conversation was it is very difficult to allow the city of Evanston to be able to purchase this and then give it to somebody else if you don't allow your town or my town or somebody else's town to have the same opportunity. It's also difficult for this body to direct the Board of Land Commissioners. Executive branch, we were told, I believe that there's been at least two times where we've done that, and the governor does not take kindly, it vetoes it, and we've never been able to override that veto. So the opportunity or the ability in the structure that we have for the city to do this is not 100% impossible, but the odds are against it, okay? And so the conversation for the city of Evanston is, we love Evanston. We're not against the city of Evanston. But at the same time, the cost to demolish the buildings doesn't go down. And so we've been trying to develop a phase, and identify what that looks like. We've also been trying to put money aside to take care of projected demolition. You'll hear repeatedly from that corner of the state that they're going to, and I know you're tired and don't want me, but we keep hearing this conversation that it's going to cost $55 million and that the landfill doesn't have enough room. The projected cost around 25 to 30 million. The landfill has plenty of time. So we have been setting aside, and we've developed phases of these buildings to be demolished. City of Evanston is saying, could we wait a year? Now, the other night, we tried to get the authority in a footnote for the Department of Health to be able to have these funds, and we killed it because we're saying they need a year. Has nothing to do. That had nothing to do with waiting a year. We gotta get those funds in place. If the city of Evanston over the next year can get this pulled off, yippee-ki-yo-ki-yay, okay? But we still need to be planning. And where we're at in this first phase on this is the bid packages go out Friday. Okay, it moves along, but the process for this demolition is going to take well over a year. So it puts aside the second phase. They have plenty of time to come back. What does it do if we pull those out of this first phase? Just extra cost, right? Is it insurmountable? No, it's not. If you vote for this amendment, it's okay. but just understand that it's going to drive up the cost. And if the city of Evanston is able to come back and get all of this done, we can take those funds that we've set aside for demolition and we can use them elsewhere. But if they can't, we need to be ready with Plan B, and we've been doing Plan B now for about 10 years to make sure that we had all the resources in place to get this done. So, you know, the old gray-haired fat guy up here is just, you know, trying to be mean and cruel, I know. But I think we need to have a clear direction and give the agencies clear direction while trying to allow the city to get this done. It's not impossible, but it's not easy. It is not easy. And we have given them 10 years. Okay, so I'm hoping with 61 other witnesses that we wait a year, and if it can't be done, we ought to move forward, okay? So thank you, appreciate the hard work that these representatives from down in that part of the state have done. They've worked really hard to get this done, and I apologize for the length of this conversation, but, well, the speakers, I finally got him to nod off, so thank you.
Representative Berger for your first time.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker, and on for this amendment, but thank you to the good representative from near the Wind Rivers. And I appreciate that, and give us, some people want to see if we can stop this for just 1 year and see what we can do, and appreciate all the hard work by the representative that shares my county. Thank you.
Representative Stivar for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honored for this amendment. There's some historical buildings there. My great aunt, my grandma, both retired from there out of the laundry. There's a lot of history over there that we don't need to be destroying, so honored for this amendment.
Representative Penn for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I'm on and for this amendment. I just had a question. Well, I like the idea of saving the buildings and also saving the money and make sure that we know where we're at. You know, the discussion of demolition is always an expensive thing, especially if you come up with asbestos, and I assume that that's been incorporated in. We want to make sure that that's properly disposed of so that somebody doesn't just try to throw it in a dumpster or bury it, but on and for, thank you.
All right. Representative Nicholas, it's been brought to my attention.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Just real
So,
quick, it's been brought to
ladies
my
and-
attention, just a second. It's been brought to my attention that people can use, maybe are using props. I don't know that they are, but if you're waiving your deal, just wave it once. You can show what your handout is, but no props. Okay. Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you. And just for the information of the body, on at least 2 different occasions, we have done comprehensive walkthroughs of every single building and made assessments of what could be salvaged and what could be not, assuming that a private entity or some entity would want or could possibly bring some of those buildings back to life. The larger, most beautiful buildings have asbestos. They have, one of them is completely mold infested on the first floor, and it's got a foot of water in the basement. It has no recoverable value. It's you know, it was a quandary we've been battling literally for 10 years on what to do and how we can do it. And I just suggested, and I'm on and against this amendment. You know, someday when these buildings are gone, this will either turn into a park or it'll turn into something. Or once these buildings are down, and the value of the property actually will go up tremendously. So it will, in the long haul, it will be the best thing for these buildings to go down for the community and for Uintah County, so that something new and that has value is there. Actually, right now, some of these older buildings are not only moldy and asbestos prone, but they're also ripe for vandalism and for destruction. You've got underground corridors for all the piping in the powerhouse. And it's not hard for someone who snooping around who will end up down in there. So it's hazardous the way it currently sits. And so on and against.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time before the sponsor? Representative Conrad, bring us home.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me preface my remarks in thanking the incredible work that the Appropriations Committee has done in this. With unbelievable respect, I greatly appreciate it. It's been a divisive issue, and I apologize for that. But I want to share with you something that occurred in 2021. There was actually a study that was done by the Myers-Anderson Group, and I will quote, "This campus presents great opportunity for repurposing the buildings and campus to continue its social and economic benefit to the community and the state." Ladies and gentlemen, all I'm asking for is we can proceed with the destruction, or more importantly, the demolition of 6 of those 10 identified buildings. Let's keep the 4 and allow the remaining campus an opportunity for the city of Evanston to pursue in this manner a historical place that has an incredible amount of memory and lineage, et cetera, so forth, that allows us in Uintah County to pursue economic development, providing housing, and a multitude of other purposes. There's already been interest by developers, as has been pointed out earlier. They do have a plan, a 3-phase plan. But let's allow the city of Evanston to come to the table and accomplish this. It's important to me. Most importantly, it's important to our residents and our community. And with that said, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Speaker, I ask for your favorable consideration in this matter.
All right, all those in favor of third reading amendment number 81 to House Bill 1 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Third reading amendment number 81 has been adopted. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 10, Representative Craigo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move third reading amendment number 10 to House Bill 1. Ask for your favorable consideration. 2 days ago, we put an amendment on the budget bill that prohibited public monies being used for abortions. It's in the Department of Health budget. I asked a question during that particular back and forth about whether or not there was an exception for the life of the mother. And then I got to digging in, and I went back and I looked at the abortion bill we passed last year. And so what this does is it just mirrors the language from that bill. For exceptions, it also includes one for rape and incest. And so I thought, for the sake of consistency, that if we're going to put that language into the budget, it should match what we did last year on this very floor. And so with that, I'd stand for any questions.
Okay, question having been called. Representative Ward, are you heading to the mic? All right, Representative Ward for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to emphasize and argue that a life is a life no matter how conceived. No other area of the law do we punish the innocent for the crime of the guilty. So I advise a no vote.
Representative Hornock for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. According to Rule 12-4, I ask for the ayes and noes.
Who are the seconds? I think we got them, Chief. All right. All those in, let's see, Chief Clerk, please call the roll on third reading amendment number 10 to House Bill 1.
Elleman? No. Allred? Andrew? No. Angelos? No. Banks? No. Bear? No. Berger? Aye. Brown? Aye. Burkhart? No. Byron? Aye. Chadwick? Aye. Chestick? Aye. Clouston? Aye. Conrad? Conrad? Craigo? Aye. Davis? Aye. Eklund, Haroldson, Harshman, Heiner, Henderson, Hornock, Jennings, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Locke, Nyman, Newsom, Nicholas, Nemec, Northrup, Oakley, Obermuller, O'Hearn, Olson, Ottman, repeat, Pendergraft, Penn, Provenza, Rodriguez Williams, Sherwood, Singh, Slagle, Smith, Stith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Trujillo, Walters, Ward, Washut, Western, Winter, Wiley, Yin, Zwaniter Dan, Zwaniter Dave, Speaker Summers.
Aye.
Are there any changes? Larson Lloyd, no to aye. Further changes? Conrad? No to aye. Nemec? No to aye. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 33 aye, 29 no.
Third reading amendment number 10 to House Bill 1 has been adopted. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 11, Representative Crago.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I respectfully withdraw third reading amendment number 11 to House Bill 1.
Yay! Third reading amendment number 11 has been withdrawn. Third reading amendment number 12, Representative Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Body, I move third reading amendment number 12 to House Bill number 1. Body, this amendment in front of you appropriates just over $4 million into the fund that supports our children between the ages of birth all the way up to 6, I believe. And these are our children with special needs. 3,443 of our children with these special needs in every one of your counties and districts exists. This is a number that was asked, and in the bill, it currently sits at this appropriation currently sits at $12,290,328, and this is asking for an increase to $16,387,104 for those children with some of the most critical special needs that we have all of our states. So I ask for your favorable consideration. Vote aye.
Chief Clerk, please call the roll on third reading amendment number 12.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Clauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermuller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stiff? Storer? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Repeat? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanzer Dan? Zwanzer Dave? Speaker Summers? Storer? Excused? To aye. Are there any changes? Jennings? Aye. To no. Further changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 41 aye, 21 no.
Third reading amendment number 12 to House Bill 1 has been adopted. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 60. Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move amendment number 60, third reading amendment number 60 to House Bill number 1, and ask for your favorable consideration. Folks, here we have some prescriptive language in the bill that is prescribing the number of beds for residential and group homes, and it's stating that we cannot, currently the bill states that we cannot expend funds from this total appropriation to support the overall capacity of residential and group home beds. It's my opinion that these departments should have some flexibility in this regard based on the demand. And so I would contend that we're getting a little bit too prescriptive in this legislation. So I would just hope for your aye vote so that we can give the department a little more flexibility with the funds that we've granted them. Thank you.
Representative Walters for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against the amendment. This is something that's been in our budget for probably 30 years plus, and it's in place to help make sure that we have high quality services provided for these young folks throughout the state of Wyoming. So again, on and against the amendment. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody for their second time before the bringer? Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the appropriator for explaining that this is about increasing the quality of service. You know, when it comes to crisis, what is more important, quality or serving those who are in need? I would say that it's time that we allow the department to make that decision, whether it's about quality or quantity. Thank you, and I would ask for your aye vote on the amendment.
All right, all those in favor of third reading amendment number 60 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Third reading amendment number 60 has failed. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 13, Representative Chestick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment looks familiar to you because it was a very similar amendment I brought on second reading 2 nights ago. This is the program to help feed hungry children over the summer when school is not out, or school is out and they don't have access to school lunches. It is a federally funded program, but it requires a state match for administration. It failed on Monday night because of a suggestion that it might have been placed in the wrong department. I had presented it to be in the, I'm sorry, I need to, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move third reading amendment 13 to House Bill number 1. The suggestion was that this was in the, when I placed this program in the Department of Education, that was not the proper place for it because another department, the Department of Family Services, Department 41, is the agency which actually runs SNAP programs and other programs like this. So I have spoken with the director of department number 49, and she is willing to take this on and is happy to support the program. What this does is create space to feed hungry kids in the summer of 2025. It's too late to get into the program for 2024, but by including an appropriation now, she has the ability to apply for the funds for 2025. If for whatever reason she doesn't, or the funds are not applied for, the money would then go back to, just revert to the general fund. But it does create the opportunity to create this fund to feed hungry children in the summer of 2025, to help alleviate some of the food insecurity needs that we know we have in the state of Wyoming. I would ask for your aye vote.
Representative Larson Lloyd, are you at the mic or not?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the, is I got up last time to oppose this because it's in the Department of Education, is because Department of Family Services is the one that administers SNAP program. And they would issue that SNAP card to the families that have these children that would qualify for school lunches during the summer. Our Department of Education administers a summer school lunch program that's available within the schools. As we visited with directors, they noted that this, the program that's being presented in this amendment has real value. And the other real important component of it being in there is, you'll recall when we presented their budget, they have a very fast, real-time way of doing verification to prevent fraud. So when they come in to participate in this, the department can verify real-time that they qualify income-wise. And then the other part of this is, it is for not this summer, but the following summer. There is a little bit of restructuring. If the agency and the executive branch doesn't feel that this works, we can pull this out next year out of the budget and live happily ever after. I would support it.
Anybody else for their first time? Representative Ottman for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions for clarification. Number one, to go along with the comment that the schools already provide summer lunches. I was under the impression that was only during summer schools, but I could be wrong. So if you know, well, that's something we need to know, because are they going to be there all summer, or are they just going to be there for a 2-week period? Secondly, I was wondering how many children this would provide for. And thirdly, when you said about creating a space, was that a space in each school, or just a space on the paper? Thank you.
Anybody else for their first time? Representative Penn for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess the last time this failed, I was under the hope that maybe this body decided to say no to some federal funds. This is a 4-to-1 match, federal to state. Does that mean 4-to-1 federal strings? No on this, please.
Representative Chairman Eklund for your first time.
So I guess before I can make a decision on it, I'm a little unclear. A couple speakers ago, they spoke of SNAP programs that are already administered through it, and reduced school lunch programs are already, I thought, already given to these poorer families, but maybe I misunderstood. Does this make that happen, or is it already happening?
Anybody else for their first time? Representative Wiley for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, it's a 4-to-1 federal match, but I mean, we're feeding kids. Sometimes these kids, you know, this is their one hot meal a day, unless it's a sack lunch or something. You know, I'd ask the bringer, are there so many strings attached that we as a state can't say no if we want to? That's all I have to say. Let's feed the kids.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time before the sponsor? Representative Chestic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In terms of how this works with the existing school lunch program, it's a different program. The school lunch program administered by the Department of Education requires on a distribution site, and not every school district has a distribution site. So this would serve some students who do not have current access to the program run by the Department of Education. So these benefits are distributed through basically a debit card, a SNAP card, and SNAP is the guardrail to make sure that only needy children get these benefits. This is additional funding. It does not hurt the school funding program that already exists in any way. That will still continue on at the same level. This is additional funding for families that need additional help, and therefore I would urge an aye vote on this. Thank you.
Chief Clerk, please call the roll on third reading amendment number 13 to House Bill 1.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Clauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Harrelson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Warnock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermuller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanitzer Dan? Zwanitzer Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there any changes? Jennings? Aye to no. Further changes? Burkhart? No to aye. Further changes? Brown? No to aye. Further changes? Speaker Summers? No to aye. Lawley? No to aye. Further changes? Closing vote. Harrelson? Closing vote. Vote closed. 36 aye, 26 no.
Third reading amendment number 13 to House Bill 1 has been adopted. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 14, Representative Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move third reading amendment number 14 to House Bill 1 and ask for your favorable consideration. This is Section 57, the Community College Commission, state aid, and I'm taking another shot at this a little bit, just giving us this body another chance to discuss it. In short, the agency made a $16 million request. It's my understanding that the governor's initial consideration, our senior executive's initial consideration, I make that mistake a few too many times, I'm sorry. His initial consideration was to deny this. He added an additional $4 million. The JAC then added $12 million on top of that and brought it back to the $16 million of the initial request. And I'd just like to ask that we take away that $12 million, save a little bit of money here. put that back. I asked originally in the discussions in the first reading, what was the driver for it? Inflation was the consideration, but I'd like to say let's, every once in a while, let's save a little bit here. So I'm asking for the reduction of that 12 million, and it would take it from 192 million down to 180. And I ask for your aye vote on this amendment.
Chairman Northrup.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So first off, we saw this in second reading, and we defeated it then. But let me talk about community colleges. They've had, I guess you would say, morsels of crumbs of inflation given to them all along the way. And we finally have this amount of money that's coming in as an inflation fighter to get their budgets back up to where they should be. And so really, it just helps support the colleges. My college in particular still can't get the wages up to K-12 what they are. We just need to have more money into the fund. When you divide it by 7, it's not a great amount per college, but it will certainly help. So, or 8, I'm sorry. So at any rate, please vote this measure down. Thank you.
Anybody else for their first time? Chairman Newsom, for your first time.
I hate to be a broken record, but sometimes I am. At 8, I guess, of our counties pay property tax mills to support community colleges. The rest of the counties do not. I think this is a great opportunity out of the general fund for those counties who do not pay any property tax to support their regional community college to take this opportunity to support the college that supports your community. Thank you.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time before the bringer? Representative Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and just ask for your aye vote and your consideration. Thank you.
Chief Clerk, please call the roll on third reading amendment number 14 to House Bill 1. Okay, one moment. Looks a little bit like the poltergeist on that screen, just saying. Go into the vote first. It's third reading 14.
Allemand. Allred. Andrew. Angelos. Banks. Bear. Berger. Brown. Burkhart. Byron. Chadwick. Chestick. Clauston. Conrad. Crago. Davis. Eklund. Harrelson. Harshman. Heiner. Henderson. Hornock. Jennings. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson JT. Lawley. Locke. Nyman. Newsom. Nicholas. Nemec. Northrup. Oakley. Obermueller. O'Hearn. Olson. Ottman. Pendergraft. Penn. Provenza. Rodriguez Williams. Sherwood. Singh. Slagle. Smith. Stith. Storer. Strock. Stivar. Tarver. Trujillo. Walters. Ward. Washut. Western. Winter. Wiley. Yin. Zwaniter Dan. Zwaniter Dave. Speaker Summers. Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 22 aye, 40 no.
Third reading amendment number 14 to House Bill 1 has failed. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 61, Representative Crago.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I respectfully withdraw third reading amendment number 61 to House Bill number 1.
Yay. Third reading amendment number 61 has been withdrawn. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 15, Representative O'Hearn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move third reading amendment number 15 to House Bill 01 and ask for your favorable consideration. I was just writing down some of the districts that have our veterans in it. District 31, 19, 60, 29, 12, and 59 myself. And number 35, we called the Tourism Board and asked them if they would like to help us do a feasibility study. And they came up with $150,000 appropriated in this. Again, this is from tourism dollars to do a comprehensive feasibility study. This study will establish parameters for design, construction, and operations, evaluation of potential market support, potential for break-even financial performance, financial forecasts of physical parameters, and recommendations for future actions. Again, this is all tourism dollars. They asked for this. I'll stand for any questions.
I see nobody going to the mic, so Representative Hornock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, this is really up to you, but I would recommend a no vote. We're spending state dollars on something that a private entity actually has done very, very well up in the kind of northwest part of the state. You may know about the museum I'm talking about. It's an incredible museum. If you've ever been up there, it does an incredible job. It's fully privately funded. The state did not spend a dime to get that thing built up there. So anyway, this maybe shouldn't be something that the state's going to look into and then end up spending millions of dollars building something. Thank you.
Representative Burkhart for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just need some clarification. I thought we already had one of these in the city in the central part of the state. I've been through it. And one here in this city. I guess I'm missing something.
Representative Conrad, are you to mic or? Okay, Representative Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the good representative from Cheyenne, this is the Wyoming State Veterans Museum at the World War II bomber training base. Has a long history there, and it's one of the last kind of intact. And if you've been to that museum, the Wyoming Veterans Museum, it's in the officers' quarters, and there's these, 60-year-old, well, more than that now, 80-year-old murals in there painted. It's really incredible. But then the other part to this whole thing, I think the representative from Cheyenne mentioned it, this unbelievable private museum on the way to Yellowstone. And the road that runs through this whole state is called the Yellowstone Highway. And there'll be millions of people driving it. And to really see if there's a potential to take this small little veterans museum, which sits on a huge World War II bomber site, and really turn it into maybe something where, hey, on your way to Yellowstone, and that new private museum, we've honored him on the floor of the House for his, back 4 years ago or so, for that unbelievable contribution to our state in Du Bois. So I think this is adding to it. And as we continue to grow our state in all these creative ways, I think it's so important. $150,000 is paid for by tourists, is in this tourism account. And the idea is then to kind of get smart people who do this for a living to see what are the options here? What's the potential? And you read, the first guy to break the sound barrier, I don't know if I can say his name. If you read his book, talks about strafing antelope to Casper Army Air Base and then radioing back into the guys so they could have some fresh meat for their meals. So it's pretty cool, but there's so much history there. And I just think it's important for us to honor that and keep it moving forward. For all the veterans here and the veterans served, my dad was World War II Air Corps, Army Air Corps. It's pretty cool. So anyway, I'd encourage you to support this expenditure of these dollars that were generated by tourists. Thank you.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time before the bringer? Representative O'Hearn, wrap her up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Built in September of 1942, it was at one time had over 5,000 people. It was one of the biggest towns in the state of Wyoming. It trained over 16,000 bomber crews. Again, this is tourism dollars. Vote aye.
Chief Clerk will be calling roll on third reading amendment number 15.
Alaman? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Clauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrop? Oakley? Obermueller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez-Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stiff? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanzer Dan? Zwanzer Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there any changes? Zwanzer Dan? No. To aye. Larson Lloyd? No. To aye. Further changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 40 aye, 22 no.
Third reading amendment number 15 to House Bill 1 has been adopted. The next bill for our consideration is third reading amendment number 16, Representative Allemand. It's third reading amendment 16 is what I have. Representative Allemand.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to move third reading number 16 to House Bill 01 and ask for your favorable consideration. But I did, folks. Monday, I came here and asked if we would take $2 million off. The body did not like that idea, and it was voted down. So what I did, I want to split it with you. I'd like to take $1 million off, as it says on page 48, line 14, under funds, decrease amount from 2 million down to 1 million. And on page 49, line 5, delete $2 million and insert $1 million. I'm just looking for a compromise. I don't always get everything I want. Usually I don't, but it's just something I thought maybe we could get along on. Thank you very much.
Chairman Newsom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is money for to celebrate the Americas 250. The bulk of this money will go out to your communities. So every community will have an opportunity to get grant dollars from this funding. If you want to take grant dollars away from your communities for celebrating our 250th anniversary, that's what this bill does. And I would hope that you would not want to do that and that you would vote no on this particular amendment. Thank you.
Representative Yin, are you there?
I am, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. On and against the amendment, Mr. Speaker, I spoke on this last time because I thought that, again, 250 years only comes once ever. It's not going to repeat. It's only going to come once. The idea that we would cut money on celebrating the freedom and the liberty of the Declaration of Independence and that huge moment and say, you know what, don't celebrate it in our community in Wyoming. Go somewhere else where they're definitely going to want to pump those tourism dollars and go celebrate it there. No, I think that's terrible idea. So again, I would urge you, make sure that people in Wyoming get this money, and it's going to make a huge difference during that bicentennial. And not only that, it's going to be able to let us all, as Wyoming, celebrate our freedom and vote no on the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Remember, there's no terrible or bad ideas. There's only ideas on the floor, and we will all judge those ideas. Representative Hornock, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a yes on this because we've heard earlier that this can't go to fireworks. So what's the use?
All right. Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time before the sponsor? Chairman Newsom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not in favor of blowing up money. That's true. Neither are any of you in this body in favor of blowing up money. I do want to make clear, though, that these are tourism dollars. These are dollars derived from the lodging tax, and most of that lodging tax is paid by our visitors. So I think this is I'm a no on this amendment. Thank you.
Representative Alaman for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our people are suffering, they're hurting, the inflation is running rapid, and we don't need to spend all this money. You know, I thought I'd cut it in half, and I thought that just might accidentally go somewhere. And I'm gonna turn 65 pretty quick, and it's only gonna happen once. It'll never happen to me twice. Thank you.
Chief Clerk, please call the roll on third reading amendment number 16.
Allemande? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Clauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermuller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stiff? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanitzer Dan? Zwanitzer Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there any changes? Obermuller? Aye to no. Haroldson, no to aye. Davis, I have you as a no. Oakley? Aye to no. Tarver? Further changes? Further changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 21 aye, 41 no.
Third reading amendment number 16 to House Bill 1 has failed. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 17, Representative Hornock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to withdraw Amendment 17.
Third reading amendment number 17 has been withdrawn. The next amendment for our consideration is third reading amendment number 82. And I've got to find that. That would be Chairman Nicholas. Representative Western, could you come up and take the helm for a bit?
Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you. I would move third reading amendment number 82 to House Bill 1. Ask for your favorable consideration. So ladies and gentlemen, what this does, this takes the second reading amendment number 63, which had to do with reducing funding to the University of Family Practice by $100,000. So it basically deletes that which was adopted 2 days ago. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I brought this back up for one reason, and that is that when individuals who have, adults who have gone through any type of medical procedures that may be transgender, which may be related to some of the things that that are not probably what we would consider to be appropriate or moral types of issues. When they go into a family practice center, they need treatment, and they need help, and they need assistance. And if they need continuing medical care, we still want to provide medical assistance to them, whether if the treatment was unsuccessful, whether it caused harm. The fact is that when someone walks in the door, you need to treat them. And so really, that's number one. And number two is the idea of being pecuniary, meaning taking away $100,000 because of a family practice center treating someone that has come and asked for help, to me is not the proper method or methodology that this institution should take in this type of proceeding. I just think it's the wrong way to do it. It's the wrong message to our constituents, to the healthcare profession, and so I'm in favor of the amendment.
Representative Oakley for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would urge an aye vote on this and would like some kind of serious thought on what this amendment does and what it doesn't do. We get very used to setting policy in this body because that's what we're, generally sent here to do. I think we need to be very careful when we start saying that what we're going to do is set policy via punitive measures, via budgeting, to independent medical providers. When we talk about freedom, we need to have freedom for our medical community, for the University of Wyoming, this family medical residency practice. They have to be able to have the autonomy, to have the freedom to look at all of the different range of maladies that may affect people. And the idea that we would say, you're not going to touch this subset of people or we will take money away from you is just a really bad way of doing business. When we talk about freedom, then that means that we have to leave professionals to do their job and to take the entire spectrum of whatever that means into account. This isn't where we start saying we believe in this social policy. You can believe whatever you want. This is something different. This is taking away that freedom for medical professionals. And it has been said, what if you think that this gender care, you don't think that's something that should be done, that's fine, but there very well might be somebody that does need or want that help. And we're gonna tell medical professionals, well, if you so much as touch that, we will take money from you. That's just, it's twofold, that it's really bad policy to do this. We can't also conflate, when we've talked about gender reassignment for children. That is not what we are talking about. These are adult professionals, and the university has autonomy, and we have to keep those ideas separate. This is not something that we do. I don't think that I'm aware of anywhere else in the budget where we're doing this punitive measure and trying to withhold funding. So I would urge your consideration for this. I do not think this is the direction we want to go. I certainly do not think that it supports freedom for our professionals and freedom for adults, which I believe this body that believes in conservative principles. I think this cuts against that. So I would ask for your aye vote on this amendment.
Any other member for their first time? Representative Ward?
Thank you, Mr. Majority Whip. If professionals want to have the freedom to do this, they can do it with their own money. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Representative Pendergraft?
Thank you. Just a little pushback, if I may, on the good representative from District 55. These are not independent clinics. They subsist on our money, on state monies. And if I interpret the Constitution of this state correctly, it says that none of that money can go to any agency that isn't within 100% control of this body of the state. We also have one other admonition in the Constitution which talks about supporting and defending the morality. And I think if you go back to the time when that particular article was written, there wouldn't be much question about what morality they're talking about.
Representative Penn, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the discussion that we had the other day on this topic was that this is a tax-funded entity here. This is about, do we want our Wyoming doctors trained to perform these things in our state? This is also about scope of practice. This is a family medicine residency program. It's not a rheumatology program. It's not a cardiovascular surgery program. It's not an endocrinology program. It's family medicine. And if these types of treatments are going to be performed, they need to be performed by the correct entities. And so if we're teaching our Wyoming student residents, doctors, that it's okay to go outside of your scope of practice because right now society is saying that this is a way to go, even if science may not send you in that direction, then I think we're headed in the wrong direction. And so I think that this is appropriate. It sends a message that says that Wyoming is not interested in pursuing this. You personally may have different perspectives, but as representatives, what do our people want? What do our constituents say on this topic? First, do no harm. That's the code of ethics that doctors take. And science can't say that these treatments offer that, offer safety. Many of the protocols, as I mentioned before, that are being followed here are not based in fact, but created by a social activist group that passes themselves off as a medical entity. That's what we're following when we're saying that we want to have our doctors treat our people in this manner. So on and against. Thank you.
Anyone else for their first time? Representative Hornock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there is a $100,000 change in this, but according to our schedule, it doesn't show that there's an appropriation. So just because of that $100,000 change, according to Rule 12-4, I ask for the ayes and noes as well.
There's 1 second. Is there another? Seconded. Any other members for their first time? Representative Ottman.
Thank you. What is he? Mr. Chairman. Okay, just a couple things to think about as I was sitting up there. One, I had a hard time finding that amendment. I didn't see it, so I wasn't expecting it. So I'll just take a minute here. If we don't do these procedures, then I don't see the necessity. Number one, there is a lot of news about litigation for these types of procedures, and they're looking at having the ability to have litigation for quite a few years. So I think maybe we need to monitor it for a little while and see what position or what direction that this is going to go in. It would be an increase in the budget for sure. And what I'm wondering about is if there is going to be the training for that, is it also then going to be for all the follow-up things? And if we could even provide that. One thing is when you go to podiatry school or dental school or whatever, you go to a specialized place. I don't think our land grant school at this point needs to be in this particular scope. Earlier, the body voted it down, so I don't think we're quite ready for it. It doesn't really support the security or the infrastructure of our nation, of our state, and there's too many things up in the air for us to really support this right now. Thank you.
Representative Horstman for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to add a couple numbers, and a good representative from Sheridan shared this document that he received from our university. But and it kind of educated me on, I want to quickly share it with you, but these three clinics in Casper, Cheyenne, and Laramie, and they do have their own independent board of directors. You know, they're the Educational Health Centers in Wyoming. Certainly they are the university, but the university's not sitting around and developing policy. But really, here's the numbers on gender affirming care. The Casper Clinic is the only one. So Cheyenne and Laramie, no. Through a single provider, and it is less than 1% of the patients at the clinic. So we're probably talking less than a half a dozen. The provider for this care is paid through clinic-generated revenue, because the clinic generates a couple million in revenue, but not through state appropriated funds. Now, you could argue these are, you know, I go to this clinic, so when I pay, you know, it's going to this entity, yeah, but so that's how this person is paid. Does not include surgery of any kind, and the care is provided, any care that is requested for minors requires a consent of a parent, and the parent attends all appointments. Residency students who are training there on a rotation are not required to participate in providing gender-affirming care. And again, the scope of care is determined by this board of directors, not by the UW Board of Trustees. And so I think a lot of times we get all fired up over stuff, but I think we want to solve, is this a real problem? I mean, are there dozens and dozens? And I think with the number we're probably talking really in Casper, a couple, and a couple people, under 10 people, given these numbers. So I just think, as we think about all that stuff and go through it. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other members for their first time? For the sponsor. To the sponsor, Chairman Nicholas. Seeing none, Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemande? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Clausen? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Harrelson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermueller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanitzer Dan? Zwanitzer Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 33 aye, 29 no.
Thank you, Chief Clerk. Members, we're going to take about a 5-minute break. We will reconvene at the sound of the gavel.